Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. He was the #1 U.S. stock market timer in the January 2020 edition of Timer Digest. He's speaking to us from Arizona. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Mark, off the top of your head, what has caught your eye about what's happening in the markets right now?
Gee, what's happening in the markets now? It's mostly a function of what's going on with crude oil. That seems to be the focus of more of the attention recently. Everybody's thinking about how that's going to affect the market and where crude oil is going, and a lot of focus on that. We are in a seasonal toppy period here, April, May in particular. Our model said that we'd have a March low and a rally into late spring. So, I think there's, among traders, you get a lot of mixed input about where the market is going short term. I guess I'm leaning a little bit more, as I said last week, more on the cautious side, considering how much we rallied, but it doesn't mean we ultimately can't go a lot higher. We've got the government out there pumping a lot of money. You got the Fed, the plunge protection team, all kinds of input. So, but as a trader, a little more cautious here. I think there's a nice little dip. We may have another tradable rally, maybe perhaps even into May, or maybe even extend into June, perhaps. But I think you got to watch out, because I think there's going to be another big sell-off coming at some point here, and we're going to have to monitor our indicators to determine if that's a push to new lows or a retest. But we may get an initial sell-off, and that might be a fake-out, and then another rally back up again, and then maybe the next top will be the bigger one. But, again, we monitor this stuff day to day.
And before we go any further, Mark, do you still have that special offer for our listeners?
Sure. If you go to VRTrader.com, that's VR, it just stands for volume reversal, VRTrader.com. We have a promo code. If you go to any of the newsletters on the screen and you click on the order page, if you enter the promo code 2020 half off, that's 2020 HALFOFF, just as it sounds, 2020 half off, you get 50% off of any product there. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mark, why do you think crude oil has taken this huge pounding, and will the economy need to reopen for crude oil to bounce back?
Well, it came down because of manipulation. It was sort of a conspiracy on the part of Russia, China, and so forth to drive the U.S. and Canadian oil producers out of business, I think, on a certain level. That's the only way I can read it. Somebody was playing around with those paper contracts. This past week you saw how crude oil went into negative territory when somebody tried to deliver couldn't exercise and deliver the contents of the contract, and they had a buyer come in here and had to pay a discount just to get it off the hands of the holder who didn't want to take delivery of it. So really wild. It's all paper. The transaction was on paper. There was actually no crude oil, from what I understand, actually involved in the transaction. But so much paper manipulation out there. I think that was the reason for the decline. As far as recovery is concerned, I think you will see one into the summer as people start going back to work and the economy starts opening up a little bit. And we also have, concerns about oil producers and drillers and the government's intervention to try to help save those companies and save that industry. So you might see some government actions to help support the price of crude oil. So I think crude oil is in the bottoming process for a rally. How far it goes, we'll have to just monitor into the early summer.
So far, the stock markets have put in a V bottom, or the stock market's pricing the reopening of the economy.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily a V. It looks like a V right now. I think it's going to be more like a W myself. You know, it's you're on the left hand side of the W, and you're going to come back down again. And I'm not really sure again of the intensity of it. There's some potential there that it could be really severe, and we could break below the lows and really fool everybody who's in belief of the V bottom. If you remember, again, we don't have a lot of statistical evidence. I'll try to make this short, but back in 2008, 2009, you had an initial low, came up, came all the way down to new lower lows a few months later, and then ultimately it turned up. I don't think this process is going to be a short-term one. There's going to be a lot of volatility, Jim, you know, up and down. It's good for traders. You know, this is not just a quick recovery coming out of the cesspool. I mean, a lot of people out of work, a lot of businesses closing, a lot of psychological damage on the part of people afraid to go out and talk to anybody or interact with anybody. It's been sort of a societal breakdown here on a certain level. So I think it's going to take time for us to come out of this, you know, how the stock market fares during this period. Again, there'll just be some trading swings, and we'll try to, you know, benefit from that, and, you know, we'll call the shots as best we can. We had some pretty good trades here the last couple of days. We were along some crude oil plays and did real well, and traded some individual stocks, and we're just sort of traders, but, you know, the impact on the economy and society is something that could last for a while, and how that's going to translate into stock prices in the next couple of years, it's tough to call. So we're just sort of trading it with a view that ultimately we will come out of it, but there might be some more pain along the way.
Are you more bullish on some sectors and bearish on others?
I'm just trading them, Jim, to be honest with you. I mean, it runs in cycles. I mean, I was bullish on gold, but I think it's overdone here. And silver, I think we need to pull back. And there's some possibility we might get a little deflationary push here a little bit and shake some of the aggressive bulls out of that market. Though I do feel there will be another run in gold and silver, as I mentioned, possibly the end of the year as we get into or just past the election. So I think that's tradable. Crude oil, as I just mentioned, is tradable. And as far as the overall market, we're just checking the indicators. You know, there are some interesting sectors out there, like recreational vehicles look interesting. People may want to start buying RVs if they have some more time to get out and enjoy the, you know, the fresh air. That might be, you know, one possibility. So we're just looking at different stocks and groups as they unfold here. I can't really throw out other names off the top of my head at the moment, but we are watching also the agricultural sector. It might be, as we already suspect, possible food shortages out there with regard to this whole coronavirus nonsense. So that might drive some agricultural ETFs and some stocks higher as prices go higher. So keeping an eye on that sector. And off the top of my head, that's sort of what comes to mind.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, how close do you think the economy is to reopening?
It's pretty close from what I'm hearing. It's going to be slow. I don't think it's going to be 100% so fast. And it sounds like, you know, by summer, by late May, early June, we'll have, you know, a good part of most of the country opened again. But the question is, what does open mean? You know, what type of opening is it? Is it full opening, or is it opening with a lot of limitations on people? And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of damage to society here. You know, they open up everything. You think everybody's going to get out there and act the way they normally did, and that's going to put a little bit of a strain on the economic recovery. I think people are, not going to be crowding into restaurants or into stores, or the sporting events are going to be more subdued. So it's going to be a different type of recovery, and it's going to take quite some time. So as far as full, I don't even know how to define that. It might take a couple of years or more, or we may never get out of this for the rest of our lives. People are going to be afraid that they're going to pick up some germ from somebody, and social distancing may become sort of the norm. People won't be shaking hands; they'll be doing elbowing. I mean, God knows what's going to come of all this. The whole thing is so way overdone. Even though this obviously was a nasty virus, we lose more people during the course of a normal flu season, as I'm sure you've already heard. So. I'm a big, I hate to use the word conspiracy, because anytime you bring this up, people think, oh, you're conspiracy theory, and there's got to be, there can't be any other answers, but I think there's plenty of other answers out there, and I don't want to rant and rave about this, but obviously there's some plan behind all this, and the way the government reacted to this, it just not even logical. It doesn't even make sense, the reaction that we've taken as a result of a bug. So my feeling was there's something else bigger in the background. There's a silent enemy that we have to define that's much bigger. We have to more worry about, and why we were being prepared this way, why we had a shelter in our houses. You almost think like this was a school air raid test of some kind. They want to see how the public would react, and we had to throw this virus out there, get everybody off the streets into their homes, and just do like a test run. So when the big event comes, which is obviously coming on some level, they needed a dress rehearsal. So there's some other bigger event that is either happening now we don't know about, or is about to happen, which why all this unfolded. That's sort of my take on it, but I guess I'm just too much of a cynic.
Are we looking at monetary or price inflation ahead?
I'm more worried about deflation, to be honest with you. That's sort of where I'm at. I know all this money printing and so forth, immediately conjures up inflationary forces. I don't think inflation is going to be the big issue. I think it's going to be more deflation, possible food shortages, other issues. Doesn't mean the stock market can't do well in trades. People seek a place to put their money. Government debt's a big problem. Governments are way overextended. The paper the government is printing may ultimately not be worth anything, even on the U.S. government side. And there might be just a flight into securities or other assets. So I don't know if that's going to offset these potential deflationary forces. I'm more worried about the deflation. That's really so where I'm at right now. Just the opposite of what most people are thinking. That just all these government funded programs and initiation of all this, lending money to businesses and they don't have to pay it back. Some of these small business administration programs they have out now. I don't know. That's not good for the paper that's being issued. I'm worried about. So more deflation and inflation, in my opinion.
Is this a good time to be bullish on Canada?
I think so. I think regardless of the currency differential, there's going to be demand for resources. Crude oil is going to come back. To what level right away, I don't know. Should do better at some point, whether the government interferes or not. People start using resources again, and certainly there's been a lot of demand for precious metals. So in terms of the resource economy, which is how I portray Canada, I would see that as a positive. Whether it's going back to new highs or not across the board, that I can't say in terms of the TSX index, but the resource economy I think should do okay. So I'm more optimistic than pessimistic.
Is the U.S. dollar likely to see continued strength?
I think so. It's the best. The best horse in the glue factory. I mean, so many other currencies are having problems, and there's a flight to the dollar. I mean, technically, it hit a little trading top here a few weeks back, but I'm not sure if it's headed into any big, downtrend so fast. So I think I mentioned this last week. I would stick with the dollar as being the currency of last resort, and until we get some clearer signals to say that it's really topped out. I know there's a lot of gold bugs out there who love, particularly here in this country, like to see the dollar come down, or everybody like to see it come down anyway, which would help commodity prices and resources and so forth. But we've already seen where you can see a strong dollar, and these resource prices can still go up anyway. So I'm not tying the dollar inversely to the prices of resources, but looking at it independently, I think it still is a bastion of strength until proven otherwise.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after the break.
Cypress Development Corp. is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cypress Development Corp. trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, does gold look like it's stair-stepping higher following its March drop?
Yes and no. It has moved higher, and many of the shares have done a little bit better than the metal itself. I don't want to say no to that, though there are some divergences. I just think it's a little overdone here, and we did see a seasonal correction when gold sat down. Now we're talking in terms of U.S. dollars down to the mid-1400s, and then it bounced all the way back up again. But I think over the short term, in the weeks ahead and possibly through the summer, I think you'll see, a little bit of a correction in the market. I think it got ahead of itself here a little bit, though I do think by the end of the year, gold and silver should do a lot better, maybe even spectacularly better. So, but it seems like the place to be is the shares, because these companies can leverage the price of gold, and you can make a lot more money on a percentage basis owning some of the big name miners.
Does silver look like it's having trouble getting over the 50-day moving average?
I have to go look at the chart and see if that's even an issue. It does look that's had some resistance here. It didn't do what all the silver bulls wanted it to do, but I think it does have a play, though I prefer gold over silver, but at some point it should see some upside action. I don't have any specific target right now for you, but if gold really starts moving and breaks out into new highs, I don't see why silver couldn't have a shot back to that $18 to $20 a range based in U.S. dollars, and we'll take it from there.
How are the markets for the metals used in lithium-ion batteries looking?
I like lithium. I've been long lithium ETF just as a core holding for the newsletter, but obviously there's been a little pushback because as crude oil came down, the argument was, well, gee, do we need energy-efficient cars as much since crude oil is so cheap now and you can buy gasoline so cheap, so everything runs in cycles. So there was thought that you don't need lithium for those batteries, particularly in the automobile industry right now if crude oil stays down. But I think as crude oil starts to recover, which it will, and the big push about green energy, I think the demand for lithium should continue.
Is the cannabis sector still oversold?
That's an understatement. It's been in a disaster area here since April of last year when it topped out. Don't know when it's going to come back. It looked like it was in a little bottoming process, and some of the bigger names are starting to act a little bit better. It's funny, some of the cannabis stores were left open during this virus crisis, and apparently there's some nice business being created, among those who believe that cannabis is either a substitute for stress or just as a remedy for normal ailments. But as far as whether it's posted a big turn or not, it's long overdue for a turn. Can't confirm it yet. So I think there's some bargains out there in some of the names, but at the moment, and we do have a few on the list here, but whether the bear market has ended is still up in the air in my work.
Are junior stocks likely to lag in the recovery?
That's a good question. You have to look at, I would have to look at like the Russell 2000, which is a smaller cap stocks here in the U.S., and they sort of led the market down. They actually topped out a bit earlier, and at the moment there's no clear sign that they've shown any great exuberancy. So I think it's going to be tougher for the smaller stocks for a while. I think ultimately they will come back, but I think the bigger names that had the better resources to survive this virus crisis, I think they're the ones that are going to come back sooner and do better.
Are there some good bargains with some well-run small gold companies out there?
Sure. I don't have a list here for you. We do have a few names on our metals resource letter, so if you subscribe to that, you might see some names in there that might interest you, some that are relatively cheap. So I don't want to mention names here, but we do have a few on the list, and I would say the smaller names have lagged a little bit versus the big names, but they will catch up. And one way you can play that would be the GDXJ, which is the small cap miners ETF. Maybe that'd be a little safer than trying to pick the winner, in that whole group.
We touched on this earlier about the coronavirus panic might have been overblown and that the economies of the world didn't have to be shut down, at least to the extent that they were. If these rumblings turn out to be true, how would the markets likely respond?
Meaning that the virus comes back?
Or that it wasn't as bad as they said it would be?
Well, then I think the market would love that. But right now they're already trying to warn us that, even though we may have our freedom restored to us here in the next few weeks and things might be great in the summer, watch out. We might see a return of the virus as the weather turns cold again in November or December of this year, and time will only tell. I'm sure they'll blow that out of proportion at that time, too, just to scare people and try to reassert their control over us, which unfortunately seems to have gone out of hand. Actually, one group that I've been watching here is some of the gun stocks. I think people may resort, unfortunately, to protecting themselves if this thing got out of hand more than it already has. So we recommended some of the gun stocks, thinking, they will. There's some buying coming into them, and if people feel some of their freedoms are being lost, or if here in the U.S., if a Democratic administration looks like it's going to come in where they try to restrict the Second Amendment, the right to hold firearms, I think you could see a big run in that group. It's sort of a tangential comment here, but I want to throw that out, too. I think people are concerned about the loss of their freedoms, and rightfully so.
Well, one of the ways they say they can control the virus is to open everybody's cell phones to being scanned by the government to find out who you met, and where you went after that. Is that something that could just continue after the virus scare is long gone?
I'm sure it can. It's one reason why I think I may, unfortunately, get rid of my cell phone. I remember the days when we could live without it, just good old telephone and so forth. I don't want to be tracked. I think majority of people feel that way. Though, there's a whole group out there, leftists, who feel like government should be in charge of us and monitor us day to day, every part of our lives. So I think that's their goal. I think more control over us, less freedoms for us, monitoring our activities, Big Brother watching us. Book 1984, which I read as a kid, seems to mean more and more every day. George Orwell's probably turning over in his grave right now.
Mark, how can people find out more about the Leibovit VR newsletters?
Very simple. We have a shortcut. Leibovit VR newsletters is the official title, but if you go to vrtrader.com, we mentioned this at the top of the interview, Victor Robert, vrtrader.com, you can see all our newsletters and description of our services, and we cover, all the major markets, and most of the letters cover everything, from cannabis to precious metals to the overall market, and a lot of individual stocks as well.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Have a great weekend. Thank you again for having me.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as vrtrader.com. He was speaking to us from Arizona. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.